how Ryan Day handles the youth in Ohio State's quarterback room.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Man, oh man, it feels good to be back with you here on a Monday on Locked On Buckeyes, talking about your Ohio State Buckeyes. Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes here on Monday, January 29th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. During today's episode, we will be joined by Locked On's recruiting analyst Brian Smith to talk about the youth and inexperienced quarterbacks at Ohio State in 2024. Also, if linebacker Tarvis Alford is favored to commit to Ohio State, and also the Buckeyes offered a really talented tight end last week as well. Trust me, this recruiting update is fun. There's a lot of good Buckeye football talk inside of it. You don't want to miss it. And as we welcome in Brian Smith, who is Locked On's recruiting analyst, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, there's been a lot of things that have gone on since the last time you and I got a chance to talk here on this show in regards to Ohio State acquiring a lot of good talent from the transfer portal. One of them being a quarterback in Julian Sayin, which was an interesting way to get a true freshman quarterback. Saban retires. He enters a portal. Next thing you know, Sayin's coming to Columbus to play college football. And so when it comes to Julian Sayin, I can't go any further without thinking about Aaron Noland and how this competition between these two guys to simply get the upper hand in the depth chart is going to start day one. It starts now. And I think competition between these two guys is good for the program.
It's really unique. I don't know if we've seen a class with two guys this highly rated at quarterback in the last 20 years. I mean, I can't think of one. There's been a few way back like 80s or whatever, but this is unique. And your point is right. While I don't expect either one of them, and nor should Ohio State fans, to make an impact this fall. It's too much to do that at the major Power 4 level. Now it's Power 4, by the way, and not Power 5. It's driving me nuts to say it. It sounds weird.
Right.
But Ohio State's offense is more complex than what some of the others are. Obviously, the expectations are higher, thus the transfer of Mr. Howard. I think that he'll be the quarterback for the next year is the bigger part with this, but they needed somebody else to take the reins. Obviously, some of the other guys didn't meet the expectations or they wouldn't have even taken Sayin. So I think it's important. I don't know which of the other guys, the younger guys, it's going to be if they stick around or whatever. So you have to look at it from a worst case scenario. We need one of these two to be ready in 25. That's the objective to me. And I know Air pretty well. I've known him since his freshman year. I'm rooting for him because he's a friend of mine. But Sayin won the Elite 11 competition that Air was at, and he finished in top 5 as well. You really can't ask for anything better. If Ryan Day can't win with these guys, then it's not going to happen. So, yeah, they're looking good. I mean, long term, you just got to get through this season, and I still think they're a title contender this year if everything works out right. But 25 on Ohio State's quarterback roster is as good as it gets in college football.
You know what? The way that C.J. Stroud has played his rookie year in the NFL, people are saying they should have been able to win with C.J. Stroud at quarterback. Stroud was starting quarterback for 2 years. I know the first year in 2021, that defense was embarrassing at times. They were allowing everybody 20. You want a 20-yard play? Okay, play Ohio State. That's how the defense was that year. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just honesty. 20-plus yards, 30-plus yards, 40-plus yards, 50-plus yards. They allowed a lot of big plays that year, and it was really kind of quite sad to watch, just to be honest with you, watch that defense there. But Day has to do something right now with this team that I don't think he's had to do ever in his tenure at Ohio State. You have a transfer experienced quarterback in Will Howard. You have to get him acclimated to the offense. You got to work with guys like Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz who have been there for a little bit, but still aren't up to speed to start at the next level or at this current level. Then you have two of the most talented quarterbacks in this freshman class where you're like, hey, we got to deal with these guys as well. So you got an experienced guy, got some younger guys, got some incoming guys. They have to figure out, along with Bill O'Brien, how to corral this room, get them all together, because you're not just dealing with guys that are experienced. You're dealing with guys at three different parts of their careers. And if you focus on Howard and you forget the freshman, well, 2025 Bryant might not look good. But if you focus on the freshman, 2024 might not look good. So Dave's going to have to figure out how he's going to handle this room and tackle the task, which is not just Will Howard, it's all the quarterbacks that are in this room.
Yeah, I mean, how do you get everybody the reps they need in practice? That's something I was talking to my buddy about, somebody John Garcia, the other day.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to do it. The number 2 quarterback always bitches about reps, and rightfully so, because either you're playing with the number 1 offense or you're not. There's no 2 positions in sport connected like wideout and quarterback, and now flex tight ends are just big receivers. How do you do that? How does, Lincoln's going to be like, look, bro, either he's going to make a move and compete for playing time, or I bet he leaves after this spring. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
He's too talented to sit. And I'm not saying he's ready for Ohio State, but he doesn't, he wants to know his deal for 25. He'd have to at least be all but guaranteed. And if you do that, at least one of the 2 kids that you're signing now are going to, no matter what, they're losing at least one of those 3 kids, minimum. But that's the norm. And Ohio State has kind of set the trend. I'll give Dave some credit for this. You bring in the best players, whoever ends up winning the job or accepting his role wherever it is, that's fine. We're going to recruit somebody just like you next year, and then we repeat the process. If you don't want to be a part of it, that's fine. Thank you for coming to Ohio State. Good luck on your future endeavors. And that's what everybody else is doing now, too. Notre Dame's kind of matched that. Georgia's done that. Everybody's trying to bring in elite quarterback every year. They don't care who it is. Now, if you're rooting for somebody, there's, I know Aaron Nolan, so I'm kind of rooting for him in the long term. It's a little rougher, but somebody's leaving, brother. I'm curious what Howard will go through early on at Ohio State this year. After last year, Ohio State fans obviously were not happy. I think he's really good, but he didn't have the talent to play with at Kansas State. It's hard to measure him, and that's a different kind of offense too, way different. He could put up 3,500 yards this year. He might only put up 2,500. I don't know. But he's going to be a running threat, and they're going to be able to use him differently than some of the other quarterbacks they had. So Ryan Day is going to have a really big playbook to mess around with. So how will he use Mr. Howard?
You talk about that running ability that he has, and my first thought is Day doesn't really use that with the quarterbacks. And it's not just – this isn't just a Kyle McCord conversation. Justin Fields is an athletic freak. Rarely ran the ball. Like, I don't think he ran 100 rushes at all in college between the 2 years he was at Ohio State, just his Ohio State career. So I'm sitting here like, if you're not using Justin Fields, who's running a 4.3, who's an athletic guy who can sling the rock, CJ Stroud's not as athletic as Fields. He can move a little bit as well. You're not running with him, but you bring in Devin Brown. You want to use this quarterback power stuff. So I'm trying to figure out what Dave's philosophy is for his quarterback, because if you're starting quarterback at Ohio State, Brian, you're not running the ball.
Unless they change. And maybe that's something, and I'm guessing Howard probably wants to do a little bit. I mean, he's a big dude. For those who don't know, he's 240-ish, give or take. That's a big human being. And if you're in the hole waiting for him, that is a business decision, because Will doesn't slide a lot on 3rd down and 1. He's a hammer. He's the fullback at 6'4", 240 coming downhill. So I know that a lot of guys don't like to get hit that are quarterbacks, and they want to save their shoulders for the NFL. Rightfully so. Will's a little bit more Bo Schembechler or Woody Hayes, 1978. So from that perspective, and that's okay. I'm curious to see if they'll utilize it, because I think that might be the key to get Ohio State this next season over the top. In close games against Georgia, against Texas, I think Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas have the 3 best rosters for next year. You need to use all your bullets in the gun, and then one of them is Will taking off.
Guys, we got to hear a little bit about Brian and what Brian thinks about Julian Sand and Aaron Nolan in the competition in that quarterback room at Ohio State in next season. What does he think about a couple of guys that are on Ohio State's recruiting board that they're trying to bring to Columbus to play football in the future? We'll dive into two of them next on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts. For your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because of eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I've been looking forward to, at some point, Brian, talking about a linebacker, because we come on here all the time and discuss Ohio State's linebacker play needs to get better, need to recruit more linebackers at the high school level, maybe get one or two in the portal. But there's a guy out there. He's a linebacker down in your neck of the woods at Vero Beach, Florida, Tarvis Alford. And I saw a tweet from On3 a couple days ago. And they said the On3 prediction machine, I have no idea what that is. That's a fancy word they want to use to describe it. Has Ohio State being a front runner for Alford, 89.1%. Second place there is Florida at 5.0%. From what you're hearing, or maybe what you're sensing, is that kind of how you feel the race to get Alford, the linebacker from Florida?
Well, Tony Alford and, of course, a certain very popular wide receiver coach in Columbus do a good job recruiting Florida, Central Florida and South Florida. I'm actually in Vero Beach right now. It's ironic. I'm on my way to South Florida when I'm doing this podcast, and he's one of those kids that everybody's recruiting. Miami wants him. Florida State wants him. Florida wants. Everybody wants this kid. I've known him for a while. He's the rare linebacker that can play in the hole. He'd kind of be, again, like a 1978 Ohio State linebacker, but he can fit the modern game too. If you run RPO and the quarterback gets outside the pocket, he can run him down from behind. So that's why he has everybody. With that being stated, this will be a long recruitment, commitment, or otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm going to set the bar right now. He is not like Miami wants this kid, and there is no more relentless staff than the University of Miami staff. I think Ohio State fans kind of know this based on the last couple of years, to say it mildly.
I think they're still pissed off about that Justin Scott snagging that they did, flipping him from Ohio State to down there in South Florida.
Well, these two schools just, they, for whatever reason, seem to recruit the same kids, but their defensive schemes are similar and they're pretty multiple. So I'm not surprised they target similar players. And Ohio State has long since recruited the state of Florida, going back to the 90s. So this is not going to be surprising. I will bet you that Ohio State and Miami will be amongst the finalists. That kind of fits the bar for what's happened in the last several years. And he's been down to UM before. He's been to Miami or to other schools in this area. Ohio State caught his attention when they came by.
Okay.
And some kids just, for whatever reason in this state, they like Ohio State. They already got the receiver, Boggs from Cocoa. He's an elite player. And I think they're always going to be a valuable commodity as far as the recruits here. And Alford does a great job getting started. It's his area. They're just recruiting him well. If they can get him, he's the kind of kid they need. You and I have talked about it, as you noted. Yeah. They need better linebackers out of the high school ranks, a little more. It's not like they're not getting talent, don't get me wrong, but they need an uptick just to give themselves more opportunities for elite players. Alford is one of those guys that doesn't come off the field because he can play on third down as a blitzer or in coverage. That's exactly what Ohio State needs.
Brian, when I watch him play, and I don't have the ability to watch him in person maybe as much as you do down there in Florida, but one thing that I do when I'm watching the clips, he's good. When he hits you, you feel it. But I'm trying to figure out, are my eyes slow, or is he a little bit slow at the snap of the ball, kind of deciphering what's happening in the play? Once he figures it out, bam, he's on it. But I think he's always a little bit a second slow at the snap of the ball. when deciphering and trying to figure out what's going on in the backfield. Am I picking that up correctly?
He doesn't always attack immediately. He just has that read and react mindset. Being an inside linebacker, I was watching some of his sophomore film a little bit ago. That's not surprising. Until I see his senior film, I'm not real worried about that. He's eventually going to pick up more things. Inside linebacker right now in the RPO game that's so heavy in Florida is impossible. You're always worried about getting beat by the tight end or some kind of play fake or somebody going over the middle. Linebackers are in a disadvantage and always will be as long as the spread offense stuff is allowed. I think that he'll get better. He's going to get even faster. He runs like a strong safety.
Oh,
that's
wow.
the key.
Yeah.
That's the key. Like I've seen him live from a few feet away running the 40, doing all the line drills and all that stuff at the Under Armour campuses. He's a very natural athlete. He's the kind of kid that even if he wasn't interested, if you threw him in a wrestling suit and taught him for a couple of months, he'd be good at that. If you put him with the pole vault, whatever, he's just a freak of nature. So I think Alford can kind of figure it out on the football field in time too. I'm not worried about that.
That speed aspect is something I do believe is going to be great wherever he plays college football. Ohio State, maybe Miami, maybe Florida, wherever he ends up going to play football.
Right.
You got to be able to play at the speed of at the next level because it's really, really hard. You talk about the RPO game that he has to deal with in high school. Think about now going to college. Running backs are as fast as you, maybe faster. You're having to guard tight ends who are as fast as you, maybe faster. You may be one-on-one with the slot receiver who is definitely faster than you. So now you got to figure out how can I use my speed and my God-given ability to be able to guard this guy who is clearly faster than me, shiftier than me, quicker, all of those things. That speed element is going to be huge. And I think it's a big reason why Ohio State's going after him is not only his ability to play football in high school, but also the speed element that he brings to the game.
Well, when you have those kinds of abilities, a coach, if he's smart, like Ohio State scheme, let's use it. Let's say Tarvis signs with the Bucks. They can blitz him. They can move him to will. He can play over the slot. Guys that don't come off the field on third down at linebacker are rare, especially if they're a thumper. And trust me, when he puts his shoulder pads into somebody, they're going to know it. That's what you're looking for. So, I mean, you're looking for 3 down linebackers. Teams get caught in these line shifts, these hockey.
Yeah.
He's not coming off the field. You're not going to get 12 men on the field if it's up to Tarvis because he's going to stay on the field on 3rd and 7. That's the kind of thing that you need. Ohio State knows that. I mean, Michigan or anybody else that you play, Penn State, some of these teams, it can be one play like that costs you. Ohio State, let's be honest, their defense, since especially that 21 team, there are a lot of plays in the middle of the field. Their linebackers got smoked. And they're pretty good against the run and stuff, but that they weren't always great in the passing game and whatnot. And these are the kinds of players that can change that for Ohio State.
Brian, Alford's one of those guys that I do believe could be a building block. We talk about that a little bit. You get guys that are high-quality guys or some of the top guys in the class. You get a quarterback that sees, I already got Boggs in this recruiting class. I want to play with him. So there, you go ahead and commit there to Ohio State. And maybe they end up adding another quarterback to the 2025 cycle. But he's one of those guys, especially being there in Florida. If you get a linebacker like this, that's a great recruiting tool for the other players in the area.
That is a big point. Florida kids talk a lot. And in general, recruits, wherever I go to visit somebody, Georgia, Florida, whatever, they're going to be talking to kids around the state. They'll be talking to other 4- and 5-star kids. KJ Bolden, a kid that they were after this past year, he's from Georgia, but Ohio State recruited him hard, etc. Like he was talking to kids all over. I knew KJ. That's what all these guys do. They want to play with other great players.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that like KJ came down to just a few schools. It wasn't real surprising that other good DB classes, etc. Is that surprising? He picked Georgia? No. That he wants to compete with the best of the best. So that's fine. Alford going, if he committed to the Buckeyes, let's say in April, that's going to help them not only obviously in the Sunshine State. Everybody knows who he is. He's at the Under Armour Future 50. He'll be at the Under Armour events, the Rivals events. He's a top 200 recruit by everybody, some have him top 100. Those are the kinds of guys that you're going to rally around. And he's a fun kid to be around. I know him a little bit. He's nice personality, easygoing. Anybody can get along with him. Yeah, you want him to help you catapult into a top 5 class.
There's one more player on my list, and the next guy that we're going to talk talk about with Brian is a guy that I've actually seen with my own two eyes during last year's high school football season. We'll talk about Brock Schott and why the Buckeyes offered him next on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2, or maybe even 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. It's that easy. Just do it and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Brian, this is one of the rare times that we're talking about a guy that's, one, not from Florida, but two, someone that I have seen with my own eyes in the last football season. 4-star tight end Brock Schott from Leo, Indiana, Leo High School. I had no idea this kid was this good on the offensive side of the ball when I saw him earlier this year, well, last year now. But this kid's a phenomenal, talented tight end. And he's also a guy, Brian, that I think is more of a new age tight end, that if Ohio State gets a commitment from him, he is a kind of guy that they can shift the tight end position with. Yeah, Jelani Thurman's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not overlooking him. But Brock Schott can be like, hey, I can do a lot of things that are new age in football that can help the Buckeyes offense.
I was surprised at how nimble he was.
Yeah.
Going through his film, whether it was a drill or whether it was in a game, he changed direction a little bit better than I thought. Because, like, you see him in an outfit, something tight fitting. He looks like he's going to be kind of muscle bound. He wasn't at all. He's pretty loose. And if you can change direction with his straight line speed to go on with it, he is fast. That's going to be a problem whether you're playing tight end. And I like him just as much at defensive end, just watching some of the clips. But you have to want to play the spot. Most kids would rather play offense. Whatever it ends up being, that's fine. He's 215, 220 now. He'll be 240, I guess, by the time he leaves college, if not 250. And to be honest with you, if he just played at 230, 235, that's fine. Because as a flex tight end, we were just talking about it. How many linebackers are going to stay with a guy like Schott?
Man.
It's going to be hard, man. He's a really powerful kid, though. Here's the versatility point, like we were talking about with Alford. 3rd down and 6, okay, you can split him out. That's fine. 3rd down and 2, as built as he is, you could put him at fullback, H-back, inline tight end, or put him out wide and run a screen, and he could be your main blocker. When you can run a 22 package or 2 running backs and 2 tight ends, the other team brings in their big linebacker, and then you split him out, advantage to the offense. That's the kind of guy he is, and to your point about new age, and it's very frustrating. I've talked to coordinators about this. They hate it. There is no counterpoint to it because guys like this can play in completely different roles, but in a heavy formation package, you have to guess. You have no idea what's coming. So that's why kids like him are so heavily recruited and why tight ends are moving up in recruiting rankings. I think 247 has him like 167 in the country. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Schott moved up because like he plays in the Fort Wayne area. It's not like it's a good area for football, but it's not coveted and scouted like where I live. Not even competitive. You know, there's a few guys that like Wilt Fong lives in Indiana, et cetera, but there aren't many. I would imagine he'd be a top 100 kid if he lived in Orlando or Daytona or Tampa, something like that.
I'm right there with you. I am actually from, I may have mentioned this to you before. I was born in Fort Wayne, moved to Indianapolis when I was 6, now live in Kokomo. I watched a high school football game in Fort Wayne a year ago, 2 years ago now. I was actually embarrassed for how bad the product was on the football field. Now, and I say bad, guys, I mean, it was one of those games where I wanted to leave at halftime. Now, it was not Brock Schott. When I saw him play, he more surprised me more on defense, Brian, than on offense. It was a 17-14 game. I might actually forget if he scored a touchdown in that game. But defensively, Leo knew Kokomo was going to run the ball the entire game. So you're trying to figure out if you're Kokomo, do we run his side? Do we not run his side? Didn't matter. He was in the mix of things every single time. You mentioned something also, though, with him at 230, 235 range. We're used to so many Ohio State tight ends be 240, 245, really be 250, 255, and they're on the field. I hope he doesn't get up that heavy. Because I'm afraid of him. Let's say he does go to Ohio State, and let's say that they do their normal tight end strength and conditioning from day one, get him up 240, 245, get on the field, he's 250 consistently. I'm worried about the speed he's going to be losing. I'm worried about him not being able to be as elusive and as big of a weapon when he split out wide as a flex tight end. I'm worried about that. You keep it more 235, putting on solid, good muscle, good weight. You keep that speed, keep that flexibility, allow him to beat you deep and to be able to still catch the ball over the middle. I think that's a better fit for him weight-wise at the next level.
I think it is too. I know it's probably the most overused comparison on the planet, but he has Travis Kelce kind of skills in terms of how he plays. I'm not saying he has Travis's hands. I'll be very clear about that. That's a little different. But at the same time, he's pretty nimble in space. Travis makes guys miss like a running back. He's the rarest of the rare. Nobody's him. But he's able to do that at 215, 220. If he can just put on 15 pounds, again, even if he's just a modest blocker, teams are going to be missing him in space, so a 3-yard look pass becomes a 12-yard first down.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. Sometimes it's the most basic stuff. Don't overcomplicate it. Let the better player make the better play, and that's why I think you're right. Sometimes a little bit smaller is okay, and like Travis, maybe he's 250. I don't even know if Travis is that big. I don't know. But he's so nimble, it doesn't matter. And that's the kind of game that Schott plays too. Nothing wrong with it.
No, I don't really know what Travis Kelce's weight is. We see him play all the time. I would think maybe at 240. Like, I'm being honest now. I'm thinking maybe 240. That
He's
extra
not
10
the
pounds. No, he's not. Not at all. Them Kelce boys, like, they're not the smallest kid. Like, Kelce's not a small tight end. His brother Jason Kelce's not a small. Like, they're not small boys. But I was thinking more 240. But if he's 250, he is out there running like a running back, hands like a receiver. Perfect fit for Patrick Mahomes, man. It's kind of nasty, kind of scary what he's doing at the next level. And I'm going to say the same thing. Like, no, he's not going to be a Travis Kelce, and like, he's not going to be that kind of guy at Ohio State or wherever he is in college. Yeah. However, if you can be somewhat, not all the way there, but if you can work your way to being that type of receiver, tight end, more of a receiver here, Ryan Day needs that so bad. Because I think one thing with the offense this year, Cade Stover, you split him out wide, he's still 250, 255. I think a little bit smaller would have been better for shaking things up for the opposition.
I think sometimes that's the case. I like Stover, by the way.
Yes,
he's very good.
I do too.
Like, if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have beat Notre Dame and some other teams they played. He came up with key catches when they took away other players. And he was that matchup, even a bigger guy. Most linebackers just couldn't guard him. He's really good, and he's a physical kid. But if you add in a pack, again, 22 package, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, okay, you have your Stover. If you put a kid like Schott in the lineup as well and you motion him out of the backfield or something, and they're in man coverage, that poor inside linebacker, that's not going to work.
No.
There's a different style for every circumstance. You have to be able to use that. I think Ohio State is one of the few schools that can get 2 elite tight ends in a class. So maybe they go get a big power guy to go with somebody like Schott in the class, for their traditional power game that Ohio State's always used. I don't know, but at the same time, I prefer the flex guy because I just still think throwing a short pass and letting the athlete be an athlete is the safest way to do it. There's a reason everybody's in spread now. It's not coincidence.
I really appreciate Brian Smith coming on the show. He is Locked On's recruiting analyst. You can follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. You can follow me on the same platform at JStevens07. This has been Locked On Buckeyes, guys. We'll see you next time.